Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for January 16th, 2018. Those that have not had the pleasure of attending one of our meetings before, after we call the roll and approve the minutes, we go over agenda items one by one. City staff presents on an item. Then it's open just to the commission first for technical questions. Once we're done with our technical questions, we open it up to the community for public commentary. If you have anything to say, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address so we have it for the minutes. Once public commentary is done, we bring it back to the commission for discussion and a vote. I would also ask that people silence their cell phones so that we don't get distracted with those things. And I would also like to welcome our new member, Tom Perry, to the committee. So welcome and have fun.
Thank you.
With that, let's call the roll in.
Michael Ford,
Here.
John Hintz,
Here.
John Kiefer, Robert Weigert,
Here.
Thomas Perry,
Here.
Kathleen Propp,
Here.
David Borsick,
Present.
Ed Bowen, Steve Cummings, Thomas Wojtek.
Here. Moving on to approval of the minutes from January 2nd. Do we have any corrections, additions, deletions to those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion clearly passes. Moving on to item number 1. Zone change from urban industrial district to single-family residential 9 district, SR9, for 3 properties located at 1603, 1607, and 1611 Ashland Street.
We have a zone change from industrial to SR9 single-family residential. Staff was approached by the owner of 1607 Ashland Avenue. Kind of in the blue square here, it is this middle property. It was previous a duplex use. The gentleman wanted to convert it back to a single-family home and do an addition onto the property. As staff began investigating it, the property was zoned industrial. Actually, the 3 properties we're discussing, and then down the eastern side of the block of Harrison, were all zoned urban industrial. The western block side of the block with the homes on it was zoned single or SR9 residential. So prior to him being able to do the conversion and doing an addition, we have to change the zoning back to SR9, which those 3 properties in question are all residential uses. South and north of him are both single family. I discussed this zone request with both of those who are also in favor of it. They'd like to make sure their zoning was in compliance with their actual intended use of the property. So here we have kind of the comprehensive land use plan. So one thing that is a little different about this is, in this instance, our exact comprehensive land use map does not match. However, comprehensive land use maps are supposed to be general in nature and not parcel specific. And with the fact that we have single-family residential to the north and south, staff does feel that this would be in character with our comprehensive land use map. And as we do the current comp plan update that we're working with some of the members of this committee, we will bring the land use recommendation in line for this area with the actual use of the properties. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the 3 properties to SR9 to match the actual use of those parcels.
All right, thank you. Technical questions from the commission? Yes, Kathy?
Are there other single-family or duplex properties on that side of Harrison that have the same problem?
Or
Or
so
not being zoned,
nope. So
uh,
so all
like
of
in-
these
all the pink?
are zoned SR9. It is just these
Okay.
3 properties that are at kind of the terminus
only those
of
3?
Ashland Avenue.
Okay,
These 3, and then this is industrial. This is an industrial building.
right. Okay, why is it colored pink?
So this is the comprehensive land use map that actually says the area should be commercial, which is what
Oh,
will
so
be,
the whole, that, I think that's part of my question.
yes, this is the comp plan, the 10 and 20 year comp
Okay,
plan.
so we will be changing that comp
Yep.
plan.
Correct.
To match the use.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other technical questions? Anyone here from the audience to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none, back to the commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Weigert,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Propp,
Aye.
Borsick,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving on to item number 2, approval of covenants for the Oshkosh Aviation Business Park.
All right, I don't have much of a presentation in terms of PowerPoint for this particular conversation. Staff's requesting approval of the private covenants for the Oshkosh Aviation Business Park. Most of you know the Oshkosh Aviation Business Park is way on the southeast side of the community, down kind of at the corner of Oregon Street and Ripple. So you can see this is the area where the covenants are proposed to apply to. Basically, it's about 80 acres, and what the covenants basically are is it's almost more restrictive layer of zoning on top of what our basic zoning is. With this respect, the covenants generally mirror our own zoning ordinances. They kick back to us when it comes to setbacks, landscaping, things like that. Where they differ just a little bit is they're a little bit more restrictive on uses, and the uses that are being called out in the aviation park have to be aviation-related type uses. So that's one covenant. So if you come in, it might be zoned heavy industrial, and any heavy industrial anywhere else could locate, but in this particular case, it has to be an aviation-related user. So that's one thing where it's a little bit more restrictive, and I think the other one is with respect to signage. Right now, signs are limited to one per property as either wall or monument type signs. Monument signs are limited to 100 square feet in area per side and limited to a maximum height of 6 feet above the center line of the street and center line. Wall signs are limited to 32 square feet in total. Monument signs are required to be landscaping. Generally, then there are other provisions that refer to outdoor storage, display, maintenance, repurchase of the land. Once we sell it, we want you to actually develop it, or we have the option to buy it back, and special exceptions. So it's really, it's really nothing different than your standard covenant. It's kind of mirrors some of the covenants that we have for our industrial parks and our other business park. And really, with these ones, they're pretty streamlined. They really reflect what's in our zoning ordinance for some of the hardscaping, landscaping, things like that. And then really where they differ is on that signage and really then on the uses. With that, I'll take any questions. I don't know, I can't go line by line through them. So.
Who initiates covenants? And on what basis?
We initiated, Alan? I'm gonna defer to Alan because he's been part of this. And really, the proposed covenants that we're requesting are the product of many meetings between us, GoED staff, GoEDC staff, industrial development community, and county staff.
We have covenants right now for the Southwest Industrial Park and the other industrial and business parks in the city. This one's being adopted separately because this one's aviation focused.
Right.
So there's a few specific items that are not going to apply to Southwest Industrial Park or Northwest. This is just for the aviation piece, and all the city-owned industrial and business parks have covenants.
And I think the reason why we put the covenants on are because when we created this park down here, we said we wanted it to be aviation related. And without having either the covenants or a PD on top of it, it would be harder to enforce having that aviation related stuff if it was just basic zoning.
Other questions for Darren? John?
And I'm guessing this is probably state mandated, but I still have to ask because of its proximity to the end of the runway here. Large wind generation and large solar generation near the end of a runway. I don't know, does that seem wise, I'm thinking?
Depends on what that happens with that technology. Anything like that, you're likely not going to be able to meet the height requirements, things like that. So there'd be some type of review. It's not, I don't believe, is that under a permitted use or is that a conditional?
It's under conditional.
It's under so it'd come in under conditional use. I think part of the reason why they put that in there, it mirrors some of the state law.
That's
in that
kind of what I
regard.
was thinking on that.
So you're right. It's in, all this is in Air 3 zone. I think yeah, you're right. There's some of this area that would be in that area, but it's mostly in air.
I mean, they have air shows there where aircraft are flying low over the runway and then doing quick turns off to the
Correct.
sides, and that's why that was my.
That's a key point. There's another thing in the ordinance or in the covenants that makes during those air shows that you have to evacuate during the air shows. So you don't.
Which is what they did for the last couple with the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels and whatnot.
Right.
In this particular case, that'll be a requirement of the purchase of the land as opposed to just getting an agreement from the property owner.
Okay.
But yeah, I believe that was in there just to mirror state law.
Okay. Yeah, that just wanted to double check and make sure that was.
Go ahead, Kathy.
There's some interesting uses on conditional uses, and I'm presuming that, well, Darren said they've been gone over line by line by line carefully, but things like commercial kitchen and indoor food production, this kind of thing, would need to be aviation related.
That's correct.
Yes. That was the The question before us was if they cater to a specific aviation business, they would be allowed.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be, the onus would be on whoever wants to locate on that site to make the case that they're aviation related. And then, again, it has to come back through conditional use period, because those uses, those type of uses mirror what's in our own zoning code. So you have the zoning, that would be the conditional use in the zoning code, and then it also has to meet the covenants of being aviation related. So there'll be 2 reviews.
Ed?
Under permitted uses, under what circumstances, I guess, do you envision a communications tower? And what does communications tower mean in general and within the context of aviation? Because I could see a bunch of different things.
I don't know.
And I don't know what that means for something to be that generally and vaguely stated as a permitted, specific permitted use.
That again mirrors the heavy industrial, our heavy industrial zoning ordinance. So it's just adopting. I think when these were written, they just mirrored what was in our heavy industrial. As a permitted use, I don't know.
Like, is it a cell tower? Is it
I think
a
given-
air traffic control tower? Is it a giant satellite dish for sending radio waves into space?
It could be.
I
Could be
like,
all- it
you
could be
tell
all-
me,
it could
because
be
we're
all the
gonna
above.
permit
Satellite
it.
dish was under
But, like,
conditional.
yeah, but like we're gonna permit it, and I don't know what it means, but you don't have to get
Is it
approval
under
for it.
permitted? Yeah, I thought it was under
You're looking
conditional.
at the communication and.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
curious what
Communications.
communications tower
I guess it was.
would be defined as.
Well, it's antenna, not tower.
No, this one's
No,
tower.
is there a tower
I
too?
is tower.
Yeah.
See if we have a definition for it.
Antenna is number
We might have-
B and W.
I could certainly be convinced as to why it may be relevant here. I just,
What is it?
what is it?
Yeah. What could it be?
Which would have been
You tell me what it is. and
would
I'll
have been
tell
a
you.
good discussion when we were adopting the new zoning ordinance. Then we could have talked about that, but I'm sure we did. Mark's going to try and find it. But I'm sure it's
You ready?
there we go.
Fire away.
Do it.
Any structure that is designed and constructed for the purpose of supporting one or more antennas for communication purposes such as cell phone or similar, including self-supported lattice, guy wire, or monopole towers. Basically,
So basically, a cell tower.
Sure. And realistically, you probably
Yeah,
have to get it.
realistically, what would we be able to?
You're going to run into the height.
Number
zone.
one, we can't approve anything or disapprove anything
That is correct.
as a cell tower, and number
Correct.
two, they're going to be restricted by the FAA on height anyway.
The height is what's going to kill anything that gets
So
too
I guess
high.
my question is, A, is it necessary, or B, is it necessary to take it out?
What if it's a short communication
I could see
tower?
both.
If it's a short communication tower that didn't conflict with the height requirements, and it was aviation related, we don't know, I mean, again, they have to make the case that this is aviation related. Maybe
Okay.
it's enhancing something around the airport or something like that. But again, remember, they have to make the case that's aviation related to both
Sure.
the airport director, industrial development community, committee. If it's permitted use, it doesn't have to go back through us.
And
But
if
the
we're
case
talking
has to
about
be
a
made.
cell tower specifically for those types of uses, would that fall under the state sort of regulatory framework where we don't have any ability to put conditions or even disapprove of it anyway? I mean,
Mark would say so.
so maybe, okay.
I mean,
So we can't do anything about it anyway.
I just forwarded, yeah, this is a thing that we're struggling with based on that
Yeah.
budget bill that went through that
Right.
had no discussion on it. I sent you the stuff from Nina
Yep.
that Alan had sent about,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very hard anymore
Okay.
to turn down.
I guess I was just trying to understand what the definition of the item was, and if, so probably we shouldn't take it out
mean,
because we can't govern
Well-
it anyway.
Well, here's, what we can do is separate ourselves from the covenants right now, get back to the basic zoning ordinance. Do we need to be ripping these out of the zoning ordinance as a permitted use in these districts? I think we have to evaluate that first and foremost.
Right, that's
with our
fair.
own zoning code. Because if we say we take it out of the zoning code, then if, even if it's in these covenants, they can't put it in there because it would be
Sure.
less restrictive than zoning, and they can't be less restrictive.
Okay, that makes sense. Like I said, I don't think I had any strong feelings about it one way or the other. I was more curious.
No, we can
What
look-
is the definition and what is the impact? So,
I would say it's going to fall into the same thing as the wind energy and solar stuff. It's
Sure.
some of the stuff through the state law that.
so FAA regulations would override in the event, like, we can't regulate cell towers, but I would imagine the FAA can regulate.
They have
From a
height
height
requirements and
perspective,
everything else?
Right.
The height, and that height, you know, you're looking at generally heights of, probably in this area of 20 feet, 20 or 30 feet max.
Yeah.
So to get a decent cell tower.
Would that really even-
It's gonna defeat itself because
Yeah.
unless you can get a variance. Now, there's a process, and the FAA will, you know, sometimes approve them, but it goes through a whole review process. You could potentially get a variance.
That close to being.
Well, there's also,
David?
material, construction material requirements of the FAA.
That, lighting, yeah, all that kind of
There's-
stuff. But even when I can tell you, even when they're building buildings and they bring a crane in that's too high, they have to get a variance to have that crane in there and get approval for that. So there's some strict scrutiny on these type of things coming through here. I think it was, you know, we could have looked at it, maybe taken that out. It's in there. It doesn't really matter. I mean, from our standpoint, if it's aviation related, and who knows, you can make the case that's aviation related, and it's low enough, it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
Other thoughts? Darren or Alan? Okay, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Going once, twice? Yeah, okay, back to the commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Weigert,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Prop. Aye. Forsick,
Aye.
Bowen,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right.
I want to make one note that we are having and I emailed you this a while back, but we're having a future meeting on January 30th, and that agenda will come out probably this week. I believe it's this week. January 30th at 5:30. There'll be a joint review board, or a joint meeting with the Traffic Review Advisory Board and us to discuss the Oshkosh Avenue TIA. And the council, I'm sorry, and the council.
Great.
Just so you guys know.
And we'll get more information on that.
You will get more information is forthcoming.
All right, thank you. Any other items of business before we make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, workshop.
Andrew, you can go.